Aloha and welcome to the Path of Me podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I wanted to create a sacred space for soul to soul conversations with people sharing their light through their passion, power, and purpose. Thank you all so much for being here. Let me introduce my next amazing podcast guest. Hey everyone, welcome to the Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I have the lovely Sharon Marie Hudson with me today. She's amazing. She does a lot of work with teens. She's a spiritual teacher, a heart math coach, a Qigong teacher in training, and devoted to helping others cultivate high vibrational, heart-centered lives. She has a deep belief in the power of love. Welcome, Sharon. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm so delighted to be here and have this cool conversation with you, just like we had the other day when we met in person.
I know. We met the other day in person for the first time. We could have probably talked all day.
I know we could have.
How did I? But it was really lovely. So I wanted to find out just kind of a little bit of the backstory because I find it always interesting to see how we end up landing where we are today, and it's always a journey. So tell me a little bit about that for you.
All right. I would say I feel like my journey in life, well, in my spiritual journey, it started ninth grade.
Wow.
I was super excited about high school. I was like, wow, there's all these cool people here, new people to meet. And it was just like, bam, this is exciting. But then about a month after school started, I had a friend commit suicide, which was a big rock the boat moment where I didn't even know I was questioning what is life, where do we go when we die? I had grown up Methodist and my parents, forced me to go to church and Sunday school and all that. And I always questioned the Bible, like, how do we know this is true? I was just always kind of like, I don't know about this. And I never really thought about God. I would say my prayers at night, but I would never think of God or the divine or anything like that until this happened.
Mhm.
It really, it woke me up to, I need to know what's beyond the veil, that we don't know about, where did my friend go? So that really started my journey with anxiety and some depression. And then high school was just, me not loving myself and just not knowing how to deal with all the ups and downs. And I wish I had somebody there to help me through my friend's suicide. And then a couple of years later, I had a friend that was murdered.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Wow.
yeah, it sounds like surreal to talk about. Like it's another lifetime ago, but I went through a lot of dangerous situations. I was in a shooting at a restaurant. I mean, I grew up in Houston in the 90s. It was not safe. It's still not really safe unless, you have the perspective of you're safe, right? But back then, I didn't know all about the energy and everything. I just found myself in wrong situations. And so there was a lot of pain from loss and just fear. And I didn't know how to handle it. So my journal was the only thing I had that kept me going because I released everything out on paper. And I in my work with kids, preteens and teens, I make sure that they understand that journaling is a great tool to use for releasing, for manifesting, for
Yeah.
putting positivity into the mind and their soul. They can use it in so many ways, just writing you know, with a hand on tape, with pen and paper, which a lot of them resist because I'd rather type. So, but I always encourage writing with your handwriting.
So Sharon, that must have been so hard to be processing all these emotions by yourself.
Yes, it really was. And I feel like, I mean, it didn't end there. When I was 20, I was dating a boy that I had known from high school, but we reconnected and he was murdered.
What?
So yeah, a few months after we started dating, he was murdered in his driveway in his car. Like I said, it feels surreal to talk about. It was such a dark, dark time for me. 20 years old. I had dealt with, you know, loss before that. So I felt like I was stronger, but losing somebody I was dating that I was close to in a different way was another experience of its own. And then finding out that he was not being, truthful with me. There was a lot I had to deal with from that. So there was a lot of growth for me between the ages of 14 to 21. Um, a lot of loss and growth and just me propelling me forward to wanting to be my best self. Like I didn't drown myself. I dealt with the grief and I kept moving. I kept moving forward. So yeah, it was the most painful part of my life, definitely.
So you had all of this deep grief, it sounds like, to process. And how did you find your way forward? Like, that's a lot to handle on your own.
It was, I feel like the support of my friends, I have a really good group of friends that I still talk to today. We don't see each other as much, but they were really supportive and always by my side. And um, I've always had this strong will in me to work on my emotional balance and just be positive in my life. So that helped me through it. I've never been a real negative person except for, you know, low self-confidence, in high school, that kind of thing. But I would always try to pick myself up and look at the positive side of things. So that always kept me going. I'm a big laugher. I like to laugh. So I would find humor in anything I could. So that helped me get through too. And psychology was my major in college. I was always interested in the human mind. So I think that helped a lot, just learning about how the mind works.
You probably learned so much about yourself through that process, right?
Yes.
Because you're studying the mind and then you can relate to your own mind and your own thought patterns and psyche, right?
Yes.
And so, what was the turning point where you thought, well, I really want to start to help kids and teens specifically?
Yeah. I've always been drawn to kids, especially, age 9 and up. I'm not really I like to look at babies and I think they're cute and all that, but I've always been drawn to the older ones that kind of start to have their own thoughts and humor about them. So when I graduated with psychology, I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I was volunteering at the Houston Zoo because I love animals. And I was thinking about working with animals, doing something with animals. And I met a woman there that was telling me that she's a teacher. And it just dawned on me. I was like, oh my gosh, why I could teach kids about animal, like nature, and animals and stuff. I could be a science teacher. And so I went back to school to get my master's in education to teach middle school science. Because I wanted to combine those two loves. But while I was a teacher, I realized these kids need a lot more than language arts, math, and science.
Right.
They were coming to me with drama with their friends because I really like to connect. I don't want to be just like that starting teacher. I was never like that. And so that would kind of get me in trouble in the public school, with my superiors because I wasn't classroom, I wasn't really great with classroom management because I like to be really easygoing. I like to connect with the kids. I think it's really important that kids connect with their teacher and they don't look at them in fear.
Giving them some emotional support. It sounds like they really needed that, especially that middle
Yeah.
school age and early high school. The high school years are so hard for teens. You're so lost. You're trying to fit in. You're really suppressing your true nature because you're trying to belong.
Yeah.
And you don't really have, you know,
the years that we were growing up, emotional safety wasn't on the radar for our parents. They just didn't have the tools. It's not that they didn't love us. They didn't know how to show up in a healthy way. And so
Totally.
it created this incredible isolation for teens, because you're just trying to figure it out on your own and you just don't have the skills or tools.
That's so true. Yeah. I look back and I think I would have really blossomed if I had some assistance in how to manage my emotions and my
Right.
low self-confidence and anxiety. Um, so when these kids came to me with all their dilemmas and, they're just, you know, they're just everyday challenges, sometimes more serious, but I would give them advice and guidance and then just watching, bullying incidents happen and just in my mind I was observing and realizing, wow, these kids need, they need so much more than what I'm teaching them. So
Right.
I got the pool, like I was just being pulled away, even though I loved connecting with the kids in the school system. I knew I needed to do something more. And so I kept thinking in my mind, what am I going to do? I don't want to go back for psychology. I don't want to be a therapist because it's not about therapy. It's
Right.
about teaching them tools to manage their emotions and to love themselves that they're not being taught in schools or by their parents. So I left and I became a life coach for kids. And that was the beginning of the work that I'm doing now. It's evolved into kids. It's mainly kids, teens, and preteens. And then it's evolved into women, um, just a heart math coach where I'm teaching others, those that really need the proof, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I went into heart math because it's like a blend of spirituality and science. And some people really need proof. So heart math came across to me through teachers that I was really into Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden, and both of them teach heart math tools. They teach, connecting the heart brain and having heart brain coherence, and they would always mention heart math. And so I started looking into heart math and learning more about what they do. It's an organization that studies the heart and brain connection and gives all these facts about the heart that, we're not taught. And all of the information that they give out is most of the information that they're teaching, ancient wisdom already knew. This is stuff that I'm learning in my Qigong classes about the heart. This is ancient knowledge, but heart math, you know, they call it modern. This is modern science, what we've learned about the heart in the last 40 years, but it goes back really thousands of years. And so those people that really need that proof, heart math is a good organization for them. And so um, there's lots of tools that they've developed that are basically like meditations, but they don't like to call it meditations. They want you to look at it as tools that you can use anywhere at any time. It doesn't have to be in a dark room with your eyes closed. Like heart focused breathing and breathing in and breathing in peace. These are a lot of their tools are
Mindfulness.
mindfulness tools that you've learned other places, but they have a specific way that they do it. Just like, there's twists and turns for, every meditation that you do.
So how long have you been doing the work with the teens? Like, how long have you been supporting teens?
Since 2017, so about 9 years.
Yeah. And do they find you online, or do you have a program you put them through, or how does that work?
They find me online. The parents are it's been a gradual popularity, or I don't know, a gradual knowledge of, parents thinking my kid doesn't need a therapist. They just need a life coach, like that kind of mentality
Right.
that they're thinking. And they Google
Google.
teen life coach or kid life coach. And then I would come up. When I first started, I was like the third website up because there weren't very many. And so I was found a lot. But now there's a lot, which is great because it needs to be a norm, I believe. I also teach on outschool.com, which is an organization. It's a platform for kids to find classes for anything like Spanish, Japanese, art, anything. And then I'm doing emotional management. Mhm.
It's fantastic. And what have you learned about yourself on this journey?
Oh gosh, I've learned that it's good. It's good for you to love yourself and to be kind to yourself. I used to be such a people pleaser, and as I started teaching kids to love themselves, I realized I need to love myself too. That and there's so much wisdom in the body. There's so much wisdom inside of us in every piece of us, like spiritually, mentally, physically. There's so much that we are not paying attention to that we can feel into, that I never thought about that. And my
It's all
team.
interconnected, right? It's mind, body, soul, right? So
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
getting signals all the time, and our different aspects of us, the mind, body, and soul, are reacting to external stimuli, internal stimuli, the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Those things are unseen, but so powerful because they create and drive everything in our lives. They drive the choices we make. They determine the frequency we hold. So if we're just poisoning ourselves with negative self-talk and limiting beliefs and fear, we're lowering our frequency and then attracting everything in resonance with that, right? Lower vibrational friends, lower vibrational experience, making choices not from the heart, but from the ego.
Right.
It's so powerful when you
It
have
is.
the awareness.
Exactly.
All of this matters, and we need to be intentional about it.
Right. And so many teens are not aware of that. I wasn't aware of it. There were subtle things that would happen, but I wouldn't work on myself, really. There wasn't intentional to love myself or,
What was
you
the
know,
pivot point for you where you kind of realized, okay, I need to change something here? And how did you find the change? How did you change within?
um, I think it's always been a gradual work for me. But I feel like when I was married, about 39, 40 years old, it kind of clicked. Like, if I want to do this work, this deep spiritual work, and I want to be my best self, I need to surround myself with those that support me in being my best self. And I wasn't getting that in my marriage.
Yeah.
And so that was another big challenge in my life, was choosing to leave, the comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And so that really propelled me deeper into my journey. And because of that experience of pain and going through, relearning how to reset my nervous system and everything through that challenge, I feel like I went through a bright-eyed, oh, I'm awake. There's a lot more going on that I can't see.
Man, it's really interesting sometimes when you change your environment, when you change your partner, when you start to really be intentional about what's aligned with you and what's not aligned with you, your frequency starts to rise. And with that comes higher consciousness. And with that comes clarity. And I think I speak for both of us because I'm in a similar situation when I say that having an opportunity to be in our own space and our own energy all the time and not have someone reflecting or projecting their stuff on us is a huge game changer and allows us to really get clarity around who we are, why we're here, and really begin to practice real radical self-love
Yeah.
and real radical self-trust and
Totally.
really know that. I think for me, like I really felt it long before I took action towards it. Like years, you know, years. I just really felt that um, the impacts of being in that relationship was as very diminished and dismissed and kind of just tolerated, you know,
Right. And
and
there's,
we just deserve so much more in life and with a partner, I think.
yes, definitely. And I feel like there's so many in the world that are living like that
Yeah.
in a relationship, because they feel like they have to. They don't feel like they have
Yeah.
choices.
Choosing yourself is such a radical act. And
It is.
I think for those of us who are energetically sensitive, like I said, you start to feel this energetic discordance
Mm.
and you can kind of handle it for a long time. You can handle it
Right.
and you can make it okay. But then there's this final moment where I think the gap is too wide. Like before you maybe be able to navigate the gap vibrationally, like you
Yeah.
learn how to meet them where they are or something. But then as you keep growing, the gap widens, right? And it gets just harder and harder to interact with a frequency that's just discordant. And it's just a personal choice. Like they're choosing to be where they are and we're choosing to be where we are. And it's just like FM and AM radio. Like you get to a point where you just can't um communicate or connect
Yeah.
anymore.
It's
Like you're
just
just in a different bandwidth, you know?
totally. And that's a good point. Were you ever in your marriage, did you ever feel like, okay, spiritually, I can control how I feel. It doesn't matter who's around me. I choose how I feel. Did you ever go through that phase?
What I felt was, to be honest, like compassion. Like I can see the patterns, right? I can see the wounds. I can see the why,
Uh-huh.
right? And I think a lot of us, I mean, I can speak only for myself, that you see and love the unrealized potential of this person. There's like this unrealized potential
Right.
because I'm very intuitive. So like I can see the soul. I know how beautiful and bright and what a powerful light the soul was. And you keep waiting for that unrealized potential for it to really manifest and integrate in form, you
Uh-huh.
know? And I think that was my downfall, was I just kept waiting for the unrealized potential. And when I speak of that, I'm not talking about achievement, right? I'm talking about um, self-love and soul embodiment. And I'm talking about anchoring higher light and being in a real union partnership versus, because we'd been married for 42 years. So that's a long time. And I was deeply unconscious. And I was very much in that I serve you at my expense mindset. And so you do that for so many years, that becomes the norm and pattern. So when I started to change and evolve into myself, into my true nature, and embody who I truly am, I couldn't participate in that dynamic anymore. And it, I just stopped serving at my expense, and it didn't go well. you know, it wasn't well received. So it's this life, when I say it's a radical act to choose ourselves, I feel like there are many women who are just sacrificing and sacrificing pieces of themselves to make everything okay. And I understand that because I had done the same thing. And when you have kids and you have a financial situation that
Mhm.
is uncertain if you leave, there's a lot of factors that factor in. I understand people who feel trapped and they just don't um, have the courage, and that's okay. Like that, everybody needs to be where they are. I'm not saying this is the way, but taking this radical step out and being in my own space, in my own energy, allows me to really, really dial into my alignment. I had to work very hard to stay in my alignment because I was being energetically challenged daily. It was so much work to stay,
Yeah, that's a
come
good
back, like come back to center and just have a trigger and then come back to center. Sit with this. Is this mine? Is this not mine? Is this my energy or not my energy? Is this my issue or not my issue? Because I'm all about self development and growth and holding and anchoring higher light. If this is my shit, I'll want to look at that,
Huh.
you know? And I'm very discerning about that. Like I'm really clear about that. I get a very hard yes or no. So that made it easier too to be like, this isn't mine
Yeah,
to carry.
right. Yeah, and it's hard to be in a marriage, a romantic relationship. Um, but it's different. If you were living with a sister or a friend, that was not on your frequency, it would be a whole different thing. But in a marriage, a partnership, romantic relationship, it's holding you down, you know? And so, yeah, I totally felt that. Wow, I'm able to
Breathe.
love myself. I'm able to expand now. I can breathe, like I don't have to work so hard every day to
Yeah.
make somebody feel better or deal with his issues with how I choose to live. It was freedom. And like you said, it's just all of a sudden you're able to work on yourself more and it's like propels you forward in the journey.
We just grew apart, we change over time.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay for us to change and then have the grace to just bow out because why should we be miserable and unhappy and resentful? Like that's going to lower my frequency, to be holding on to anything that's not truly supportive and aligned with me and loving me forward, right? Pouring into me. I have to be in a situation or relationship, whether it's friendship or with my kids or where it's two ways, we have to mutually water each other's gardens. It can't just be like, um, I pour everything out, but nothing comes in, and I'm talking about emotionally, spiritually, the frequencies of love, kindness, compassion, and I think it's really important that we sit with ourselves and ask ourselves, is this what we truly want? Is this truly aligned? Because I feel like when we make aligned choices, whatever they are, the universe is going to align for us and bring us the right opportunities and the right housing and the right people will show up. When we are aligned, things seem to work out. And then if you're not and you stay in situations that aren't, you can do it, but it's going to be painful. Right.
Very true.
So you've embarked on this whole adventure where you've branched out on your own and started doing all this incredible work. How do people find you if they want to work with you?
My website, Sharon Marie Hudson, is the main place. I'm on Facebook, Substack. I am on Instagram. I took a really long break from Instagram, but I've been back on there the last week. Sharon Marie Hudson on there. And yeah, you can find everything I do on my website.
What
Okay.
sparks joy for you, Sharon?
Say that again.
What sparks joy for you?
What sparks joy for me is just the simplicity of being outside and listening to birds and watching or just being able to just be and not feel a rush or like a timeline or anything, just be and, experience all the nature that, was put on this earth for us to enjoy and laughter and adventure.
Yeah. Do you find when you're in a space of presence that time seems to stretch and expand? Like I feel like when I'm very present, I feel this expansion like of the moment. Like it's not collapse. It seems like when I'm really present to it,
Yes.
this almost full-bodied experience of
Mhm.
it, whether I'm watching a sunset, I'm having this magical moment with my granddaughter, and we're just really present with each other. It's really kind of magical. Do you find that for yourself?
Yes. Very, very much. I feel like sometimes I will look at the clock and then I'll be in this present moment and it doesn't even seem like time went on. It didn't even seem like the time changed. But if I'm having a super busy day and I'm not being present,
Right.
it's like, where did the time go?
Yeah. I want to ask you a broader question. What have you been perceiving in the collective when you are observing and kind of
Mhm.
connected and tuned in? I'm just curious what your perspective is and what you've been observing
I
collective.
well, I listen to a lot of people, including you, a lot of people that are tuned in, that are channelers, and it feels like all of the teachers and channelers and healers that I tune into are on the same page with what's happening. And basically, we're on this journey, we're ascending, and I can feel it as long as I stay centered and grounded and I don't let myself get pulled into the 3D conversations of like
Politics.
tariffs and taxes and oh my gosh, all this stuff is happening to us. We're just victims. And as long as I stay out of that and I just stay tuned in and you know, the last year I've really been working on tuning in myself and not depending so much on listening to other people because I'm inspired by so many cool people. You're one of the people. All your Facebook posts are just like spot on. Like I think you posted something after Trump was did you post something after Trump was elected about how the diversity and opinions of in the spiritual world? Yeah, that was so helpful. I was like, oh, thank you. So just those kind of things just inspire me and help me stay grounded. It helps me get back to the truth of things and not get pulled into all the noise,
Yeah.
and to sit and listen to my own self and what I feel is like I'm excited about what's happening. And I know that I could go and get upset about whoever the president is. I mean, it doesn't matter if the president is, people are going to be unhappy. People are going to be happy. It doesn't matter because it's not going to affect my life. I choose to live how I want to live.
Feel like we have to be so intentional, right, about just bringing it back in and then
Exactly.
trusting what we get, right? We need to trust ourselves first, and then, I really trust the information I get. I'm very connected, but everybody has that potential. I don't want people to just take what I say. I want them to look at it and go, does this resonate with me or not?
Right.
Like, it's okay if it doesn't, because we're all choosing different paths up the mountain. We're all holding different frequencies. And I'm writing to the people who resonate, right?
Yeah.
And
And I,
people who resonate, and
yeah.
it's okay if it doesn't. But I love that you're trusting yourself and tuning into yourself more, because that's the way forward for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate that about you. You say that, if this resonates with you,
Yeah. And
read it,
always,
listen to
I
it.
always want to guide them back, my clients, my friends. I always want to guide them back to themselves. And I never will just be like, well, it's this, and this. I mean, I might know the answer, but I'll be like, well, what do you think? Like,
Mhm.
what's coming up for you around it? Like, it's so important that we flex that discernment muscle so that we can actually choose to be um, in our alignment and in our truth.
Yes.
That's what matters. And sometimes the truth changes. Like, I've seen, as your frequency rises and your consciousness expands, like I said, it's like going up, spiraling up a mountain and hitting that same vista point. you're going to be like, wow. When you're up here, you look out, you're like, wow, there's this whole world out there. You know, your view changes when you're at the base of the mountain. All you see are trees. You can't see anything. You can't see the forest through the trees, like they say.
Right.
As you're growing, as you're hitting that same view and vista point, the clarity allows you to have more grace, more compassion, more kindness towards yourself, but also more self-love, and then be able to offer that to others because you understand on a deeper level what's happening, right? If you're on the ground and all you see is the forest, you're like, I'm never getting out of here. Oh my God, I'm going to get eaten by a bear. There's all this fear and there's just all this vibrational stuff when you don't have the clarity. And that is your reality for you and that frequency. But I just find, like you were saying, as you've gone on the journey, things have started to open up and you're trusting yourself more, which I think is amazing.
It feels so good to trust yourself. It feels so empowering.
And then the more you do for yourself, the more you can offer these kids that you mentor.
Yes, yes. One of my students yesterday, she's 12, I believe. It was the end of our 12 session. She's had 12 sessions with me and she has just blossomed in that time. And so I was like, you know what, let's just practice some, intuitive practices, Have you, and just talking to her about intuition, have you ever had that deep knowing about something? You knew something. She's like, yeah, and that's like, that's your inner wisdom. It's important that you tap into that and practice with that. And she is just so open to it. So it's really interesting. There's some kids that aren't real open to that and they don't really know what I'm talking about or care, but most of them do. They want to know that they have this inner power. They want to know that they're powerful.
Well, they've come in with it, right? Especially the kids. Yeah. They have this innate wisdom. They have this innate power. And they're not as cloaked.
Right.
Because the frequencies are different on the planet. When we came in, it was so that there was so much density. You had to swim through molasses to get to the surface. You had to fight for it, but now the frequency, the veils are thinning and the frequencies are higher. So I just really honor your work. And I think your work is so needed here right now because so many are struggling, especially those teenagers. Their parents are doing the best they can, but they don't always have parents who are dialed in intuitively and emotionally. They've been programmed to shut it.
Right.
And so they can't even speak freely about, wow, I just have this kind of vision about something or this knowing about something. I have a family that very much is unconscious and not interested. So I'm very quiet around them. I'm just very, very quiet. Like I get information all the time on all kinds of things. And I just write and write and write in my journal, like you were saying, thousands of words. And just watch it all unfold, And nobody needs to know that I saw this a year ago and here we are. But it's because I know and I trust myself, and that's the main thing, Do you have anything you'd like to share in terms of tools that have helped your kids that might help others? Some parting wisdom before we.
Let's see. Well, I've been slowly bringing in qigong practices with my kids, and they don't want to get up and do any, movements, we think of qigong as like standing up and doing these weird things, but just doing little things like tapping, around on the acupressure points, that kind of thing. And then the 10 dragons through the forest is one of my favorite things to teach. It's like you're wiping out the negative beliefs. So your dragons are going through your forest, you're rubbing your your fingers along your scalp and just imagining that you're taking out those limiting beliefs and whatever's there. They're even they dust it off and flick it off into the earth to be recycled, and just doing movements and just intentional things with your hand. It really helps them really retain the information and understand it easier. So I love to bring in movement into our meditation practices.
Well, also, like you were saying, the meditation doesn't have to be just sitting quietly and being silent. Like, I used to go to this intense spin class 5 days a week. I was crazy about it.
That is intense.
And that was my intense unconscious years where I had so much stress and I like needed an outlet. Like,
Yeah.
when some people run or swim, for me it was spin. And the music would just be like pounding, but somehow I would just dial in and just get into this zone. I can't explain it, and just connect to God somehow, like in this
Wow.
zone, in this crazy loud spin class, working out really hard. There was something about it I can't explain.
Mhm.
That was just like a moving meditation for me, and you come out afterwards and feel rejuvenated and refreshed and like plugged
Yeah.
in, because life is it's so easy to just get pulled off all the time with the kids and activities and work, and if you have pets, right? So I found that everyone needs to find the thing that works for them.
Exactly. Right. And I talked to them about that. It's not, in a dark room with your eyes closed. If that doesn't work for you, I have come across some that they love to meditate, and that's how they would like to meditate. But most kids, they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. So I talked to them about, you can put mindfulness into when you're eating your favorite dessert, or
Mhm.
you're dancing, or on your trampoline, whatever it is, as long as you're staying present in the moment. You could even do a walking meditation with, while visualizing something that you're trying to create for yourself. There's all kinds of, methods out there that I wasn't aware of when I first started meditating. There wasn't YouTube. I don't even know when YouTube was started, but we can go on YouTube or like Insight Timer or anything and find all these different kinds of meditations. It was just, let me breathe. And what else is there? There's so much. There's so much. So yeah, I totally believe that. Teaching anybody, kids, adults, everybody, that it doesn't have to be what, it's so funny when I ask my kids, what do you know about meditation? They'll be like, oh, you go like this, you go, oh, like, a lot of them will say that, like the younger
Oh
ones.
my God, that's so cute. Well, I have this 3-year-old granddaughter, and she's already learned to like, to, sh- she'll start to try to breathe deep to calm
Oh, God.
down. She's getting like super emotional. Like her mommy taught her that to just to breathe, and she puts her hands here
Oh,
and
good.
try and come back.
Yes.
And we do a lot of talking about feelings. And I think it's so great that they have you to talk to, because I think having a safe space is so valuable for anyone. I mean, adults as well, right? A lot of adults that are wounded are literally grown up versions, but inside they're the wounded 7-year-old or the 4-year-old child. And
Yes.
they need safety, emotional safety and love. And a lot
Totally.
of it too is reclaiming worthiness, right? Is just realizing we're born worthy. And I felt so unworthy. That's why I did too much all the time. I was trying to prove it and chase it, and I needed it so bad. This confirmation that I was worthy. And the irony is I never got it. Like, I worked so hard. It had to come from me. I didn't have someone going, wow, you're doing a great job, right?
Love that.
It had to be an inside job, but I didn't learn that for decades. I mean, I was a slow learner, I guess.
But I mean, we weren't taught that, right? I mean, it was never in any curriculum. It never came out of my parents' mouth.
I don't know if you've had this experience in your culture, but like for me, my culture was very much, it's like emotionally closed. is you're just emotionally closed off. So you're very much in this space of just burying and burying and burying and
Okay.
burying. And then you reach a point where like you just really can't stuff anything in anymore. Like you're at capacity, you know? That
Right.
means you had that same thing where you just kind of keep pushing it down and keep pushing it down until you're just like, I don't think there's any space in here anymore to
Yeah,
put
definitely.
anything, you know?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I wasn't really able to express myself much. So, yeah, my emotions were definitely pushed down a
I'm
lot.
sure obviously now you've gone through so much healing that you are very much able to identify and communicate and journal and do all the things, right? To
Definitely.
process. Sometimes too, I notice you have this one last dance. Like that situation just comes around one more time and you're like, uh-huh.
Yeah.
I thought I mastered this, but really it's just to show you that you've mastered it. Cause instead of losing it, you're just like, oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
that's a good point. Yeah.
I've got to step back. This one last dance with this just to show me that
Uh-huh.
I got this one. You know,
Yeah, it's like a celebration.
absolutely. Afterwards, you know,
Yeah.
you're in it. You're like, wow, I have a
I
choice.
did it. Yeah.
I could react or I could just, step back.
Yeah.
But Sharon, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so
It's
much
just been fun.
staying with me and following me all over the place in this podcast. We just covered so many different things. I'll have all of your contact information in the comments. And I just want to thank you for this noble work you're doing with kids. I just think it's so valuable.
Thank you. I appreciate the support.
I just hope everybody out there who has teenagers thinks about getting a package with you, because I know when they have that safe space and those tools, there's no stopping them, you know? You're setting
Yes,
them up and building this foundation for success. So,
totally.
anyway, to my audience, thank you so much for joining me and this beautiful episode with Sharon. Be kind to yourselves, love yourselves. See you next time. Bye.